Man, like any in the summer. Don't act like a bummer.
Welcome back, Spokane. This is Jessica Side.
And I'm Matt Side.
And we're here with EvoReal Talks for another week of information and wonderment.
And wonderment, yes.
Yeah.
And we're going to make real estate fun again.
I guess, yes, that is what we're going to do.
Has it ever really lost its fun?
Yes, I think so. I think there are times when it can be extremely dry.
Awesome. You're right.
It's true. So tell me a little bit about what's going on in your life.
Oh.
That's my life too, isn't it?
Yeah, in our lives.
Yeah.
Well, quick shout out to some Ferris Saxon parents and teachers. Yesterday, they ran all over the South Hill and put signs in yards of the seniors that were graduating. I thought, it was super cool.
It was
Just
really nice.
A neat
Yeah, they basically got those
yard signs.
Printed some yard signs and it says Saxon Senior 2020. And
the kids are taking selfies with them and posting them, hashtagging
right.
them. I don't know what they hashtag it, but
it's just really nice. And I'm sure that there are other schools out there. This has been a tough time for seniors in high school, just because, you just think back a little ways or maybe a long ways to your senior year and those last couple of months, how fun that was.
Yeah,
and
just the excitement of all of the handoffs and the prom and yearbook signings.
Yeah, and our son is also in the leadership class, and so he, gets to plan all the cons, and they had a bunch of cool stuff planned, and it's all down the tube.
Yeah, so there's a lot of disappointment and frustration and kind of back and forth and ping-ponging of that. So that was a fun, I don't know, something that they're doing to kind of help make it a little less disappointing, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this week we're going to talk a little bit about Mead and the area of Mead. And so I want to start out with some history.
Let's start out with some Mead history.
Let's do it. So first of all, Mead is actually named after the Civil War general George Gordon Mead, I believe. And he was the general that defeated Robert E. Lee at the Battle of Gettysburg.
He defeated Robert E. Lee?
He's not like a Spokane native or anything.
No, I know, but still, what did he do wrong to get sent out here?
He wasn't sent out here at all. It's like being named after this.
Oh, I see.
Wow.
I see. Well,
like Washington, weird name doesn't mean
now
George.
I get it. Now
George
I get
Washington.
it. Just the way that you said that, it made me think that he was at the Battle of Gettysburg, and then he came to Spokane.
And then he was like, you know what? So there's not a lot of history about Mead, Washington, believe it or not.
I do believe it.
But I did find some interesting facts. So we had the Spokane Falls and Northern Railway, is what it was called, which is kind of weird, and Northern Railway. Anyway, it started in Spokane, and then this Mead, Washington, was actually called Peone, was the second stop. So there's one piece of history for you. If you wanted to get from downtown Spokane to what is now Mead, Washington, was then Mead, Washington as well, you just had to have one stop.
In Peone.
In Peone, that's right. And so anyway, and then it continued on. You could go up to Deer Park, all the way up to Colville and beyond, actually almost all the way to Canada. I think eventually it did go through Canada, but that time kind of had a small footprint. So Matt, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
What is the first thing you think of when I say Mead, Washington, or just Mead?
Well, when you say Mead, it's schools.
That's
Mead
right.
Schools.
Yeah, and that's kind of, it's a big deal. Mead, I mean, how many people have said to you or said to me, I want to live somewhere where I'm in the Mead School District? It's happened
a ton.
Numerous times over the years. It used to be called, Mead High School used to be called Union High. I couldn't quite figure out when that started. So unfortunately, I don't have the date of that, but I believe it was pre-1900. I'm not 100% sure. But it turned into Mead High in 1933. There's a couple of different numbers, but anywhere between 9,000 and 10,000 students in Mead School District schools.
Wow.
Now, here's the crazy thing. The town of Mead in the 2010 census was only 7,276 people. So
there's more kids in the school district than there are in the town.
That's right. That's right. So they have 4 elementary schools with a 5th one that should be opening in 2020 called Creekside. They have 3 middle schools, 2 high schools, and 2 alternative schools as well. So, they've got, 11 schools right now. Pretty amazing.
Did you have a chance to look up any of their, school district stats or anything like that?
Well, if you go and you look at, because they have grade schools, I think they've got an A- right now. So it's popular, and it's popular for a good reason.
Yeah,
it's always been a really good
school. They've got a great
district.
reputation,
They
which I
certainly
haven't
do.
gone to research it myself, but I have heard those that have that the Mead School District is a great,
there's some people that's just a
reputation.
non-negotiable. I have to have my kids in the Mead School District, so it's pretty cool. There was an aluminum plant in Mead. So we had one out at Trentwood, and then we had another one in Mead, and they were a huge part of the World War II effort. So they were making, items to go off to war, or at least preparing the aluminum for that. In 1956, Henry J. Kaiser actually then took over that aluminum plant. So it was not a Kaiser aluminum plant until 1956. And they retooled it since the war was over. They retooled it for domestic use, and so they started finding a lot of ways to use aluminum to keep that plant going.
Was the plant built for the military? Was it a military-run facility at that point?
I'm not sure. That information, again, very hard. I'm sure there might be people that are listening to this that have more information. I would love information. Just send it on over to ask@everreal.com if you have any more information about Mead history.
Yeah, so the Mead plant, they had the 2 plants. They had the Mead plant, which is the smelter. That's where they would melt everything and do the aluminum. And then they would literally truck it across Bigelow Gulch, basically, to the Trentwood plant. And it would be in these massive containers that were filled with molten aluminum. And then they would take it to Trentwood and dump it into that was the rolling mill. So then they would put it in whatever contraption they would use to roll the aluminum, and so very interesting.
So now, kind of fast forward a little bit, and this is a piece of history that I think is very interesting, and for some people, they won't realize this, but Mead is the home of a computer game development firm called Cyan Worlds, and they make Myst, Myst, and Riven. Those are really big, they are huge in the video game world. Myst, by the year 2000, so they started the firm in 1987. They had sold 6.3 million units worldwide by 2000. It's basically an adventure puzzle game. It was founded by 2 brothers, by Rand and Robin Miller. And so, one of them went to UW. I think they lived in Spokane, but their office now is in Mead. If you look up their address, it's Mead, Washington.
I when I was on the board of a nonprofit, we met in their office was in the same building as I think those guys. You walk in and there was.
I'm just not sure. The only reason I doubt that a little bit is that they've got a really cool building with a really cool entrance with brick and stuff like that. Do you recall something like that?
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Anyway,
it would be a really unique.
It was a little campus type thing. There were several buildings there. Anyway,
maybe so, and maybe because I think they've downsized. At one point they had 120 employees, and then I think they're more down to 50 employees.
I just know it was a gaming company that was the primary tenant in that building.
Gotcha.
And they had massively fast internet.
Well, the really cool thing about them is they were true pioneers. It was a game that featured not only just video gaming, but art. The music is very, it's orchestral, it's beautiful music. It's very famous for that soundtrack. The puzzle, the adventure story, and it was the first. It was the first game that came on a CD-ROM, and because it had so much information. So anyway,
I remember that.
I think that's kind of a cool thing to end on the Mead history, and we'll kind of come back to Mead a little bit,
especially for you as a gamer.
Yeah, well, I'm not a video gamer though. Although I do think that
Gamer is a gamer. years.
That's not true. We could have a whole conversation about that. Myst really, if you are interested at all in looking at some incredibly beautiful art, just look up Myst, Myst, and you'll see why they were such pioneers in that field. So,
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about our featured house, which is actually in Mead.
Look at that.
In Mead proper, not just the Mead School District, because
Right.
the Mead School District is huge.
Yes, it is.
13815 North Meadowlark Court. This is actually listed by a broker in our office, Chris Mack. It's just under 2,500 square feet. It's a 3-bed, 3-bath. Currently listed at $350,000. It's been on the market for a couple days as of the airing of this radio show. New paint, new roof, seamless gutters, new flooring and carpet throughout, granite countertops. It was built in the early 90s, but it was totally, or it was updated in 2018. So.
Yeah. So let me say one thing about this is that when we go and look at the numbers, this is the least expensive stick-built home in Mead right now that is available. So, sure.
And by the time we have this out on the airwaves, it might be not available
Well,
anymore.
I hope that it is. And if you're interested in that, give us a call, 509-62-HOUSE. We can help you, and you can certainly check it out on our website, EvoReal.com.
And you can always message us, find us at EvoReal, ask at EvoReal.com, get a hold of us somehow. We'll get you some information and help you take a look at that house.
Absolutely. So, Matt, I know that we have been talking furiously, not furiously as in angry, but quickly talking to our lender today about what's going on with rates, and I know that we want to talk about that today.
Yeah, so as far as the real estate piece of it, today what I want to talk about interest rates, refinances, PMI, which stands for private mortgage insurance, and why waiting for the real estate crash isn't necessarily the best idea. So those are kind of the let's talk real estate overarching stuff. But let's start before we go to the break. Let's talk about interest rates and refinancing. So I have to obviously say, the caveat is that interest rates change daily, if not multiple times throughout the day. So I think it's important that if you listen to this, you're like, oh my gosh, those are amazing interest rates. You have to talk to your lender and find out. But Dustin Masterson from New America Credit Union, we love Dustin. We've done a lot of business with Dustin. He has now refinanced our house 1.5 times because we're halfway through a refinance at the moment. So interest rates today on a 30-year loan were in the low 3s. Some very good friends of ours locked in at 3.2 today for a 30-year loan. And then 15-year loans were around 2.875 today, which these are just insane numbers. And what I want to talk about on this, because I get this question a lot, it's like, hey, how are interest rates? I wonder if I should refinance. And it's a legitimate question because just because the interest rate is lower than your current interest rate doesn't mean that it makes sense to refinance. And so this is where you can help me make sure I'm communicating numbers over the airwaves well.
Okay.
But when I go to figure out what I'm going to do as far as if I should refinance a home, I look at, well, first of all, lender of mine, Dustin, tell me what are my fees going to be? If we refinance at this loan price, let's just say it's $300,000 loan price that I'm going to refinance, how much am I going to have to pay in fees? Because there's going to be appraisal usually, there's going to be title searches, origination fees, all those kind of things. And then I'm going to compare what my change in payment is in comparison to that. So let's just pretend the fees to do my refinance are $4,500. I'm totally making these numbers up, but it'll give us a point of context. And let's just say my $300,000 loan at 4.75% interest is a $1,565 principal and interest payment. But if I get a 3.25% interest rate on that same 30-year loan.
So it's a 1.5% difference.
1.5%. It's going to go down to $1,305. So basically a $260 a month savings. So I'm going to take $4,500, which is what I'm paying for this loan, and I'm going to divide that
for the refinance.
For the refinance of the loan. And I'm going to divide that by the $260 per month of savings. And that gives me 17.3 months. Why does that matter to me? Well, it's going to take me 17.3 months to pay back the money I paid to get the refinance loan in the first place. So what that means is if I'm planning on selling or moving in the next 2 years, that would be a dumb move because you're barely going to get back what you put into the loan.
Right.
Does that make sense?
You're barely going to get back what you paid to get that house refinanced. So if you're thinking about selling in 2 years-ish, in this scenario, right?
And whatever the number of months are for you.
Sure, if that fee is less, then it might
if the
make
fee is
sense.
less or the savings is more, and that's where, a lot of times there's this rule of thumb where people say, oh, you should wait until you have 2 percentage point drop before you refinance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably a
rule
rule
of
of thumb that kind
right?
of gets you close to what makes sense. I think the other thing with this interest rate climate
mm-hmm.
is, can you take yourself from a 30-year loan down to a 15-year
right.
loan? Like if I'm at 4.75 on a 30 and I get down to 2.85 on a 15, how much does that impact my payment? And can I keep my payments even similar and then cut 15 years off my mortgage? Now you're talking tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings on your monthly payments.
Right.
So those are kind of some things to take a look at when you're deciding whether or not you should refinance.
Cool.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to EvoReal Talks. We are going to transition now out of the refinance into talking about PMI and private mortgage insurance. So let's just get a quick foundation context mm-hmm. here. Private mortgage insurance is insurance that you pay for, but it protects your bank.
That's right.
Gotta love that. So private mortgage insurance is put in place to protect the bank when you as the borrower put less than 20% down.
Right.
So before private mortgage insurance existed, you couldn't get a loan with less than 20% down.
That's why people saved and saved and saved to buy a house, and it was more of a big deal than it is now. To be a first-time home buyer was like you might save, the first 10 years of your marriage just to be able to buy a home because you had to put that 20% down. And they wanted to make home buying more in reach of people. Who knows if it was out of generosity or out of wanting to stimulate the market.
The economy, that's what it was doing.
And so they were able to figure out ways with FHA and VA and different loans to shrink your down payment, but the bank still didn't want to have big risk.
Sure.
And so private mortgage insurances
and the government didn't want the bank to have big risk either.
Right.
And so that's a whole different conversation for a different day.
But kind of interesting.
The stimulus of the economy and the teetering of our economy now that we've got such leverage there. But all right, so let's talk about private mortgage insurance. Since it's not actually benefiting you, it'd be really nice to get rid of it. So there are 2 ways that you can get rid of private mortgage insurance. Either if the value of your house increases, so now you have 20% or more equity, or the principal of your loan has been reduced so that you have 20% or more equity, or obviously a combination of the two would work as well. So the one thing I will say, and we've mentioned this in prior episodes, that with 10 to 12% appreciation every year for the last 5 years, if you've owned your home for 2 years or more,
7 to 10%. Over the last 5 years.
Over the last 5 years,
yeah.
56% appreciation in 5 years.
I'm just telling you.
We're making a bet.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, between debt service and 14% at a minimum appreciation over the last 2 years, then more than likely you'd be able to get your private mortgage insurance removed. So hearkening back to what we were talking about earlier with a refinance, if you refinance your home and that equity is there, you're going to get rid of private mortgage insurance.
Yes.
So then you get to save on your monthly payment because your interest rate has gone down, and you get to save on your monthly payment because your private mortgage insurance is gone.
So what you're saying is, if it makes sense for you to refinance, it also makes sense for you to look at getting rid of private mortgage insurance, because by doing...
Well, they're going to look at it. You're not going to have to pay for private mortgage insurance if you have the equity.
So if you think that you've got the equity, it might be the opposite is true too. If you're thinking you want to get rid of private mortgage insurance, it might be worth it to refinance at the same time.
And it's very much worth the conversation with a trusted lender that will help you with that.
Yes.
So those are the 2 things as far as getting rid of private mortgage insurance. I will say that if you are not refinancing, or it doesn't make sense for you to refinance, but you're unsure on what the value of your home is, like that's something that we will happily do at no cost and no obligation, is just run a market analysis for you so you can get an idea of, here's what the market would say my house is worth versus what I owe, and do a quick calculation. And then you can call your bank and say, hey, my real estate broker just told me my houses would probably appraise around this dollar amount. I'd like to make an appeal to get rid of private mortgage insurance.
And we can do that. The nice thing is, especially during this time, to keep everybody safe, as long as I have quite a few pictures of your home and I'm able to have a conversation with you, I can do a lot of that work remotely. So
perfect.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about waiting to get into the buying market for those amazing foreclosures that are coming after the whole coronavirus thing.
Okay.
And if you can't hear the sarcasm in my voice, there might be a little bit there. This is also, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Dustin Masterson and I were having a conversation earlier today about this as well. And this really, really low interest rate climate that we're in right now makes waiting for a really good deal, which may or may not ever come. And I think that that's one of the most important things for us to identify, is that that's completely conjecture.
Yes.
Like, that's just speculation that the market's going to tank.
Right.
And we probably don't have time to get into the details on why I don't think it's going to probably tank right now. But I'll just suffice it to say is that I don't believe that this is going to be 2006, 7, and 8. I don't think that the market's going to, I think that there's going to be some tightness, but I don't think it's going to drop like that. So the numbers that Dustin and I were running, they are around a $300,000 loan amount.
Okay.
And basically it's driven off of purchasing power. So if you can get a $300,000 loan on your income at 3.25% interest today, if that rate goes up to 4%, that's only 0.75 percentage increase, you're now only going to qualify for $270,000. That is a 10% decrease in your ability to purchase.
Right.
And I would argue with you that it is very unlikely that the real estate market in Spokane is going to go down 10%,
right,
but highly likely that interest rates will hit 4% or higher in the next 12 months.
Okay.
Case closed.
Right. So basically what you're saying is it makes a lot of sense to actually purchase while the interest rate is low, because you think you might get a better deal because foreclosures are coming or people are going to drop their prices, but they're not going to drop them. A $300,000 house is not going to drop. If it's worth $300,000 today, it's going to be worth close to that even 6 months from now.
Yeah, a year from now. I mean, even in the really, really rough financial crisis in Spokane, we weren't seeing 20% decreases in a year in value. Like, that just wasn't happening, and it's not going to happen again in the near future. So I think it comes back to purpose.
Yeah.
Like, what is your purpose? Is your purpose to buy a home, or is your purpose to flip a property? If you're going to flip or sell quickly for a quick gain and be speculative about it, then you should probably just sit and wait and see what happens. But you're speculating. So I guess my message is to those home buyers out there that are like, well, I think I'm just so-and-so.
Gonna ride it out.
So-and-so that's a real estate investor told me I should be waiting because I'm going to get some killer deals in the next year. And I just, with where interest rates are, I just don't think you're going to see that as far as like a place that you're going to move into and live.
Yeah, that's good. That's good information.
Anyway, so there we are.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to come back to our featured community, which is Mead. And I want to talk about what's to love in that area. So, and I know that you're going to have a lot to say about this because you lived closer to that area than I did growing up. And I think the number one thing that we can probably all agree with is just its proximity to Mt Spokane State Park.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you are talking about the winter or if you were talking about the summer. There are wonderful things to do there. I mean,
I think that the charm of Mead, if it's in Matt's opinion only, is its nearness to kind of that rural, lots of space, natural type living.
Yep.
And its proximity to Spokane.
Yeah.
Like, you're still only 20 to 30 minutes from just about anywhere.
I think technically if you go from it's 8.2 miles from Spokane is what it says. So no, I think it's wonderful. So one of the places on Mt Spokane that I think is really fun is Bear Creek. Let's try that again. Bear Creek Lodge, which is great for tubing and snowmobiling. And we happen to know the family that actually originated that place. It used to be called Linder's Lodge, and so it's got some history there that's really, really kind of fun for us. But
they used to own a whole section of the mountain.
Oh, yeah.
There's a Linder's Ridge is still the name of one of the ridges.
Yeah, it's
there.
pretty cool. Now let's talk about some of the restaurants. There's not a ton of restaurants in Mead, but I know.
Remember, it's close to everything else, though.
Yeah. Cinola Restaurant and Lounge. I've heard that they have prime rib every Friday and Saturday, and honestly, for me, that is worth a drive to Mead because I love prime rib so much. Hop Mountain Taproom and Grill. So it looks like I don't know if
Is it actually in Mead?
I think it is. It's really close.
Okay.
It's certainly really close. And then the last one I want to talk about is the one that I hear about all the time, which is Maw Phin Thai, which is a Thai restaurant.
It's a super great little hole in the wall.
Yeah, I mean, people absolutely rave about that place.
It's tiny. It's pretty much takeout. There's only a few tables in there to sit down.
And I've come this close to going there a couple of times, and unfortunately have never been able to make it. But Steve,
it's really good.
Our friend Steve Kettle, shout out to Steve Kettle. He loves that place. It's like one of his absolute favorites.
Yeah, Josh and I were there at one point. It was really good.
Yeah. So another thing to love about Mead is that because the schools are so big, they're actually a 4A class when it comes to sports and school, and so they compete with the big boys.
Well, they are big boys and big girls up there. Their athletics.
Yes.
I'm not saying that just in size of human, but some of it is size of human.
They're just super strong, man.
When they play every sport.
Yeah.
They're
ferociously. Yeah, I mean, we've played them in baseball and softball, and they're just really outstanding. My son would be like, "Oh man, we gotta play Mead."
They grow them big up there. Well, we should do some numbers.
Yeah, let's do the numbers, and let's do them for Mead first.
Yeah, you go ahead and do the Mead numbers.
Okay, cool. So I decided to do. I first looked at Mead School District, and the difference between Mead School District and Mead itself is it's 10 times bigger. So I decided I would just stick with the actual Mead area. And right now there are 18 active homes for sale. Now, interestingly enough, they've got 5 manufactured homes without land. So these are properties that you would, buy in a park. And they're anywhere between $49,000 and $115,000. There's 1 condo on Mt Spokane at $121,000. There are 4 manufactured homes with land, and these are starting at $190,000 and go up to $350,000. There are 8 stick-built homes, and I mentioned this before, $350,000, which is the listing that Chris Mack in our office has, and then a $1.2 million house is the highest. So in that area, you have 40. You can move in with $49,000, and you can move in with $1.2 million. So it's quite the span. Pending, there are 15 homes that are pending right now. The median price for the pending homes is $350,000. Sold in the last 6 months, 53 homes have sold in the last 6 months. And the median sold price is $287,000. So just the bottom line for Mead is that it's a small town outside of Spokane with a wide range of buying options where suburban and rural are perfectly mixed.
Yeah, it's a very attractive place, especially if you want a little elbow room.
Yeah. So Matt, let's go over.
Yeah, let's do the Spokane numbers. So as of today, active listings 986. There are 1,204 pending listings. In the last 7 days, 119 have sold. That's 17 per day, which is very much the same as it's been every time we've done this for the last few weeks.
Yep.
Sold in the last 30 days, 558. Our average per month right now is 882 if you go back for an entire year. So the inventory right now for our last 30 days worth of sales is 1.12 months of inventory. So it's shrinking.
Shrinking because last week it was 1.2. So not a lot, but a little bit.
And I think that this is very interesting. 51 of the listings that have sold in the last 30 days.
Last 7 days.
Sold above list price. So 42% of the listings in the last week have sold above their list price.
So let me repeat that because I think it's important that we understand that 42% of the houses that have sold in the last 7 days in Spokane have been over list price. And that's going to be our teaser for next week, because next week we are going to delve into how can you put together a competitive offer if you are a buyer in this market right now.
And that's a really important question on people's minds.
Yeah.
So that'll be a good show. All right, well, that's all for us for today. If you have questions, if we can help you with anything, email us at ask@everreal.com. You can find us on the social media just search EvoReal or 509-62 House. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll talk with you next week. Have
Bye,
a great one.
everybody.